Uh, Today's topic that we're going to work on is leveraging the conversation into the building the brand strategy. Uh, we have seen, lateral shift of market, where, the branding started from TV, print, and then we moved to digital. And then digital, was sort of advanced into the social, but social being just, a content-based solution with no two-way communication happening. A lot of things are now shifting toward the conversation. I think this is a new vertical which has built up, where your customers, they're interacting, the users are interacting, and that is where it is more important for us to leverage this sort of a medium for building the successful brand strategy. I would just start with the questions, randomly asking the panels. Thank you, Niraj, Yash, Mamta, Hoshedar, for making to this panel. What is the essence of building a successful brand strategy? So I think, Hoshedar, if you can just start from there.
Thanks, Tabrez. I think, within the sports vertical, which is where I sort of generally ply my trade, at Rise Worldwide, wherein we manage a couple of relatively large sports-related IPs. Our primary objective, depending on the IP actually, and depending on the sport really. So, for example, if it's cricket, it's well entrenched within India. Consumption occurs organically up to a certain point. So the brand strategy essentially associated with cricket is more oriented towards more mature objectives, towards engagement, monetization, capturing first-party data in a meaningful manner. So all activities are oriented towards that, and that's where conversational media comes into the picture from an engagement side of things, at least at this point, not quite monetization. For some of the other sports which are a little bit, I would say, not quite in the reckoning, whether they can be called as emerging or developing sports, our objective is primarily to attract more attention, gather more reach, impressions, and hence it sort of varies depending on our overall intent and the relative maturity of the sport or the league within its sort of incumbent ecosystem.
Mamta, what do you think is the element for successful brand building?
I think a lot of elements come together when we talk about building a successful strategy for a brand, and conversational marketing is something that forms a very important part of that, because there's a lot of clutter today, right? When you talk about video or you talk about the other kind of social media marketing that you're already doing, but what makes how do you become a part of a user's conversation, where that there's a platform that's available where users are already talking to each other, and how do you become a part of that? So basically, brands are in this case not just talking at the consumer, but are a part of the conversation. Now that's what brands need to do in order to become the talk of the town. So hence I think that while you have other elements in your brand building strategy, conversational media now is going to become a very important element.
Okay, so we're talking about conversation media, right? And I would just want to have some highlight for the audiences what this conversation media is all about. So Niraj, you being an activator of conversational media, experimenting with it, right, for a long time, with so many things. I mean, let's have your viewpoint, actually what conversation media is all about, and how are we planning to evangelize this medium?
Yeah, I would say when we started really early, which was mostly like in the SMS age. But if you were to see now, conversational AI is pretty much firing up on all three formats, which is text, voice, and video. So you see tons of work happening on Google Business Messaging out there, WhatsApp. WhatsApp now supports UPI as well as WhatsApp Pay. So we're also chasing low funnel goals out there. We're also creating record number of bots, the 101 bots where there are bots and humans coexisting, right? So the conversation would start with a bot and then humans would take over and drive transactions out there. So there's tons of work which is happening in the space. One of the new areas of work which is picked up recently, which is on this entire space of emoji marketing. So now our conversational bots also have a lot of these brand stickers which are driving conversations out there. So the classic one is the work which we did on Happy Dent and on ITC. I think tons of them, right? Once we solve these, the core issue of measurement out there with this entire stack of keypad-led emoji marketing, we activated about 10 plus odd campaigns out there. Now what we're looking at right now is to go for the moonshot and try and error and experiment on a lot of these tech solutions which are going to ride on top of conversational AI stack. So as we speak, you see synthetic AI is one of the, technology levers which are getting integrated onto chatbots. And the conversations on the chatbot are getting more personalized now, right? We're also looking at this entire space of social media, and we are talking about the social AR as a very big space, right? So whether it's Snap AR, people could actually virtually try on stuff when they look at a particular brand story. They can virtually try on an in-app. Inside the native app, they can actually transact as well. There's a lot of work happening on the AR space, synthetic AI space, and all these conversational bots which are getting created for the brands. And the future, as we were discussing, would be how about getting a Lensa AI kind of an experience on mobile heads, where characters are not just being formed, you give power to the machine where people can go and create the avatars, but avatars can actually perform using AI, right?
Yeah.
Or the chat GPT environment, which is like mind-blowing. And club AR with it, you can punch in text and it creates AR renditions for you. So I would say sky is the limit. There's loads happening in that space.
No, these are all emerging trends, right? We recently saw WhatsApp also launching the avatar. They did an event. Now they're coming into this space because they realize that personalization with the conversation is a key out here, right? Now, how do brand evangelize these conversation in a very innovative way, right, is a key out here. But for that, we need to have the relevancy of the conversation, right? What do you feel, any of you can just throw a light on that, how this experimentation has worked for you in terms of using the conversation. So Mamta, I think you have used conversation as a medium for your brand strategies. What is your experience so far?
So we've used conversational media for one of our brands, Kama Sutra condoms. The category is such that you know that there are two people who are having conversation on a daily basis. Now, how do you become a part of that without really, being intrusive in their conversation? So we picked up like some very commonly used words that two lovers or couples would use, which is "I love you," for example, or "let's have a date night." So using these, very, very highly used common terms, we created stickers using the Bobble platform. And we reached out to, millions of users through this activation. One of the things that we saw was that the engagement that we got through this activation was 2 times more than any other platform. So that's the kind of engagements you get when you give users what they want to use, as a marketing tool or a format. The other thing that we did was with this, the top 3 performing stickers that did really well, on our media campaign, we converted them into NFTs. And we sold those NFTs, within 1 week, almost 3 days. So that was the kind of engagement that we got through this activation. And obviously, since Kama Sutra was a part of their conversation, it definitely created some brand recall. So the next time they want to think of, buying a particular sexual wellness product, Kama Sutra will be, in the consideration set for them. So that was, what we did for one of our brands.
Yash, you're a brand which is related to emotions, happiness, and everything. What do you feel? What is your take on, conversation being utilized in terms of engaging with your end consumers?
Yeah, so I think an interesting point is that conversation media, there is a huge scale around it that exists already. Like 1 billion messages that gets exchanged, and that's like the global number floating, right? So I think the scale is already there. The beauty is that you are engaging the consumer when there is an intent. So if I am, like Mamta mentioned, if you're writing "I love you" and there is a contextual element that you get there, the user is already in an intent-driven consumer journey. From there on, how do you make it more relevant is where, platforms like Bobble, WhatsApp bots, etc. will come into the picture. And I think for us, with Silk and Oreo, there have been campaigns like Silk has a Valentine's Day campaign, which is the biggest campaign for the brand in the year. And I think for that campaign, when we used certain keywords which were intent out and tried to engage the consumer and, make the rest of the journey more meaningful, it eventually keeps the brand at top of mind and builds the recall. However, I still feel like a very candid view on this would be, it should not be looked upon as a shiny new object in the digital ecosystem. It will have to be tracked from a measurement lens, apart from brand lifts, which tell us that you get good effectiveness and you get good recalls, etc. However, I think the loop can be closed, and that is where I think Niraj also touched upon, where if you can link commerce leg to it and make it an end-to-end consumer journey, that will make it more meaningful, and it will become a part of campaigns for the brand on an ongoing basis in a meaningful way.
We'll definitely come to that user measurement piece, but I want to understand from Hoshedar that, same question, how conversation has helped you in terms of building the brand strategy?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different for everyone else over here, because I guess you're representing brands within various categories, whereas I work on a project or an IP which is linked to passion inherently. If team wins, we've got fans, we don't have customers, which is a sort of a inherent difference in a way which makes my life a little bit more easier than yours in many ways, but also difficult at different times, of course. But yeah, I think experimentation within the sports industry has been not quite there. I would say we are generally quite change averse overall as an industry. We've tried to sort of push the envelope a little bit. Some of our examples of within the conversational media realm have been, starting the first sort of WhatsApp chatbot from a team perspective, which has resulted in another avenue for our fans to engage with. Of course, it's not setting the world alight in terms of millions and millions of conversations, but it's catering to a sect or a niche portion of fans which do want to engage and interact with our WhatsApp bot and get necessary information, but also get rich media, whether that's in the form of GIFs. And that's one element which has done really well for us, I would say, wherein we've worked with the likes of Jiffy or Tenor in some way or form, and we've not just looked at simple GIFs featuring our players, but we've also added layers of text and copy associated with the GIFs to make them conversational, not just for the team to use, but for everyday fans to use as well. So for example, our most used or viewed GIF has not been one that celebrates a player, but it's been one wherein we've added the text "Good morning" to an action, a relevant action created by a player in some way or form, because we know that that's the kind of messaging that comes out and is shared on a regular basis. I don't do that, but a lot of other people do that on a regular basis, and you receive them. Right? You receive these kind of WhatsApp messages on a regular basis, and that's where we've tried to add a layer of MI in this case to that conversation. So we've found an opportunity where normally it wouldn't exist, and we've tried to sort of be a part of that conversation between fans, between individuals, one way or another. Even if they are not Mumbai Indians fans in some way or form, they might have either seen or received that GIF in some manner, and that's just one small, I would say, win that we've seen.
Just to add to what, cricket is a very interesting property out there, right? And like I said, if you give power to the machines, and if you give power to the humans, the result which you get in terms of virality and the advocates which you create is way, way more powerful, right? So what if Good Morning goes with MI branding and with users, the fans themselves, posing with, say, Sachin, in that case, right? So virality is going to be much higher out there. So more and more solutions where you involve the audience as part of your communication is going to give it scale. Like look at this 100%. Campaign of which Yash and me have worked on, which is not just a Cadbury ad. We actually gave power to the machines. And then further we took it to humans and we said every retailer can now create their own ad. If you look at Alexa today, Alexa has given Amitabh Bachchan's voice to Alexa, right? It's still power to the machine. Users are not getting actively involved. So the moment you take this, and the emoji is a space with so many billions of messaging getting exchanged, if you give power to humans and involve them as part of the communication, then it's going to go in for a scale, right? So that's one area which I'm pretty bullish on in terms of how solutions would be crafted in times to come.
No, good point, Niraj. And what I feel, I mean, taking an example of, cricket team out here, I'm just giving a generic example. It's all about enthusiasm. Cricket is a passion for us. It's all about, showing your emotions while the match is on. What if those sixes, fours, wickets can be celebrated within the conversation with the branding, right? As in Bubble, we did, not to promote Bubble, I'm just giving an example out here. We came up with this innovative solution of, putting a score bar on top of the keyboard, yeah, which can be branded for any team. Which means, rather than you going to any platform to look at the scores, you are able to see the scores within the keyboard, and that interaction with the team is much more higher. Then you have all the suggestion of players, caricatures, where you want to post them with, like Niraj said. These are the interaction which needs to be created in a very innovative way to basically build the brand, right? Good point. But then let's go back to the question that Niraj raised. It's all about measurement, right? Because this is a user-generated content. Now, there's a challenge, as in, creator of these, content and conversation content. What is the roadblock do you see in terms of the measurement? I mean, what are your apprehension? What are your suggestions that, how we can resolve this problem? Because the virality is just something which is not controllable, right? Even if we commit a matrix to a client, it's going to be, over-delivered. You don't have a control. And then there comes a, question from the marketers about, measuring the success of the campaign or brand safety.
In certain cases, the virality must be going beyond your universe.
Exactly.
So Google has an 80 million universe, must be going way, way beyond that. Once those emojis, they latch on to WhatsApp as a platform.
So what do you suggest? I mean, what should be the means and mechanism in terms of the measurements we can think about? Do you see that as a roadblock? Or do you see that, something can be done in this particular stream? Why? Because, these are GIFs, right? These are not banners or videos where, you put trackers and measure, who's seeing what and what they're doing what. You had to rely on certain benchmarking, which is acceptable within the platform. So, I mean, Niraj, anything that you
serving on these kind of platforms, anything that's linked to OEM, any interventions which are being created with the OEM inventory, serving is a perennial problem, right? So, all you can do is maybe, like what you guys have done, put in Nielsen DAR, get the target audience correct in that case. Even if you put trackers, it's not going to give you the real picture. So you'll have to somewhere rely on their data to kind of measure it. So that's one of the reasons all the funds which are moving on to platforms like these are coming in from innovation budgets and not from the mainstream budgets, right? So it's more capped on the innovation budgets line. So once maybe there's a green check on all measurement criteria which are being followed for other mainstream inventory, this can go in for a scale, which I think together the industry has to come up with a solve. Right now, as we speak, all OEM-led interventions, serving is a bigger challenge.
So, Yash, do you feel the same way? I mean, when you have used a conversational platform, is there a roadblock in terms of tracking, measuring, or anything?
And just to add to what I said, so what we need to do is, as this platform, is to enable a commerce plugin. You must be doing measurements through other XYZ research platforms and coming up with the brand lift studies. But if we add a commerce plugin to it, so somebody is saying, I need to travel to Delhi, and the thumbnail comes like you mentioned, he clicks on it and transacts, books a ticket, that solves for it then in that case, right?
So that was the discussion topic that we had in another track, conversational commerce, playing on the intent and the context of the user. So it's not all about serving the ads, doing carpet bombing, basis your own analysis of the users or certain customer cohorts. Within the conversation, if I'm, let's say, talking about a shirt, a commerce can happen related to that shirt, and I can suggest certain products related to shirt to the user, most probably is going to convert, right? So that's what is happening. I think that's going to be the future. But at the same time, our marketers really sort of like Niraj said, picking up the statement, experimental budgets, right? Are we going to take that risk, to move this into a regular budget, or rather than, just rely on traditional media, right, in terms of reaching out to the customers and building up the brand strategy?
Yeah. So I think on that one, it currently sits as a part of the surround or experimental budget that the brand would have, because it's not linked and not proven in terms of attribution to business. However, I think commerce angle can solve it, or brands and partners will have to work on a solution that is not just campaign out, which is in and out, which is topical for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then you move on from it and then pick it up whenever it's next relevant. Rather than that, you will have to move to a mindset where it can be a meaningful, always on, and therefore can be tracked and an attributed result to it from a market mix modeling or any other solution that can help attribute its deployment to the business as well, because it's definitely doing great things at the top of the funnel, but through the funnel, if we can find solutions and if we can land a case study around that, then I think that's for it to move from surround or experimental to a regular budget scenario.
Mamta, your viewpoint?
So I think that attaching a bottom funnel, like Yash just spoke about, a bottom funnel objective to your entire conversational media marketing is the key there. Because so if you look at chatbots, right, even they are a part of your conversational media. And I think it was Niraj's one of the sessions that I heard, chatbots are going to get really hybrid now. So thanks to 5G, the chatbots will now be able to see your expressions, right? They will know what your mood is, and these chatbots can actually talk to you depending on the kind of mood that you are in. So they can actually become like your personal assistants, for example. If it's a clothing brand, they will actually suggest things to you through a conversation. So that's the kind of future that we're talking about. Right now, we're limited to just maybe, calculating the engagement rates.
So you're talking about humanizing the chatbots as well?
Yeah, that is going to happen very soon.
Yeah.
The digital humans.
Yeah, the digital humans.
Hoshedar?
Yeah, I think Yash mentioned that the challenges of attribution at this point and conversions at the very end of the funnel in some way or form. The industry that I work in, there's not a lot of pressure in terms of that, if I may say so. And that sort of works in our favor in the sense that we get an opportunity to experiment and innovate a little bit more without the pressure of, proving tangible conversions or proving tangible monetization opportunities in some way or form, because we're in a slightly different business from trying to sell a product or a service. We're trying to sort of promote the brand, promote the team ethos, and create or deepen the affinity within our primary stakeholder group, which is our fans and fans currently and also potentially fans of the future. So we're trying to recruit new fans in some way or form, and there's no one way to do that. As you can imagine, we have multiple touch points, and even if you hit all touch points, if results don't go your way, it's not going to work for whatever reason. So I think within sport, conversational media lends itself really well because there's not subsequent or comparable pressure to show attribution, to show sort of tangible, commercializable results immediately. So the potential runway is higher, at least within the sports ecosystem at this point. But that's assuming you do take that first step and get the ball rolling and experience it and see the benefit of it, at least from an engagement and reach and awareness perspective, I would say at this point.
Great.
Another way to make it more meaty is to integrate a live commerce platform onto these conversational media platforms, right?
Yeah, that's instant conversion, right? Awareness versus conversion. So, I mean, I think, Mamta, you gave an example about Kama Sutra, right? I think that's one way of understanding, ring fencing the user to the funnel, right? So, within the conversation, a brand was posted, right? You got people excited, then they came on an NFT platform, you got a good footfall, then you had the conversions, you had the buyouts. So I think that's the only way which is available in terms of measurement, that how many people react to it, right? So emotion, like you talked about, emotion can be tracked, right? Are they happy with it? Are they sad with it? And how they're associating with your brands. Now let's go to the consumer side and take a different sort of understanding of this. How is conversation medium helping the user, right? What is your viewpoint on that? How it is benefiting the users?
So, just to give you an example here, just imagine there's a normal conversation that's going on, and text is a very dry sort of, format for me at least. And if any of the person who's talking replies with an okay, just an okay, and another person replies with an okay with a smiley, for example,
The third person okay with a smiley and dancing.
something like that. So that sort of enhances the kind of mood, the conversation that you're having, and it also talks about the mood in which the user is, the person is. So I think visuals play a very important role in conversational marketing, whether it's stickers or GIFs or any other audio maybe.
Especially for your brand.
Especially for our brand. So that really, I think visual plays an important role there. And a user will use your stickers only to enhance their conversation. So there are two things to this. One is the context, what the audiences are talking about, and the kind of content that you're creating. So it's a very, it's sort of a sweet spot that you try to, as a brand,
Just to summarize, the user has never been thrilled and excited like ever before.
Ever before. It's more about personalization, right? Now he feels that.
I think one more interesting point I want to add to that is the text conversation, just in terms of words, can be interpreted in many ways, right? And okay can also mean a stern okay, disappointed okay, or a delighted okay. But when you add a sticker or an emoji or any visual to it, it actually defines the context of the text. And that is where I think from a consumer lens, a lot of Gen Zs, and you will find articles around it, they only, or they maximum chat in GIFs, etc., of the context they want to convey. So I think that's where I think the medium is very powerful. How you meaningfully engage onto it is something that the brand should try.
And also people are lazy. So they don't want to type a lot, and they just want to, use an emoji or a GIF that conveys everything that they might want to, type over a 30-second duration. So don't discount the laziness.
Yep.
Also differentiates you from the crowd, right? I've got these series of tactical emojis which are saved in my chat box right now, right? So whether it's Holi, I would have a different narrative, happy birthday, and when everyone's just giving that dry messaging of happy birthday, you will suddenly pop in with a thumbs up happy birthday creative, right? Or a happy birthday creative out there. And eventually the brand is gaining, because these are becoming advocates who are now talking about these occasions.
Yeah. And I feel you and me talking the other day, right, about how conversation and these sort of emojis are going to actually moderate a lot of negative sentiments for certain brands created by outside social media, in terms of demonizing certain brands associated to whatever emojis or memes that they create, right? I think these conversation one-to-one with the users is going to help in the brands and marketers in terms of normalizing the brand sentiment as well. We need to think beyond the brand safety, because brand safety within the user, I think that's something which is not related. Why? Because user has all the right to play around with the content. They can do anything, right? Even if it is an OS, somebody can paint something over it, right? So we need to think beyond that lens, that brand safety within the conversation, it can be within the conversation, you can't stop that, but if you normalize that by pouring in the right content, right, with the right message, it can. I mean, I'm not naming a brand out here. We've done sort of normalizing the body shaming with one of the brands, right, within the conversation. So this how it can help. And I think Niraj is the best person who basically keeps eye on experimentation to sort of conclude this before we take some questions. That, what do you feel? I mean, everything is in the lab right now. We're trying to explore more things within the conversation. We're trying to bring very innovative solution for marketers. What do you feel is the way forward? What would be the acceptance? Where do you see this sort of marketing or brand marketing for conversation is going to go for?
Mamta mentioned a very interesting point is a technology which we are actively working on, which is on AI-powered digital humans, right? And they are, all the while, all the tech stack which we have as part of our R&D lab, which are suppressed because of bandwidth, are going to get live with 5G. So 5G would be a perfect test bed to roll out a lot of these tech stack which we are talking about, including all what we touched upon. Like consumer today is living in an era where they are able to experiment with a lot of technology, right? If you look at OpenAI or the Lensa AI, everyone started looking like dudes and rock stars using Lensa AI, right? It's all over the place and it goes extremely viral. So more and more conversational and social conversational platform will have a integration of these tech stack onto it, which will allow consumers to create more experiences at scale. And brands would also get into the bandwagon, whether it's creating their own AI mascots, like their own digital humans who are going to move into virtual worlds, which is what Gen Z is already in. There are tens and millions of people who are in virtual worlds right now, right? Brands would be creating more and more AI mascots who are going to be moving into these immersive worlds and driving conversations. Exactly similar to an avatar which we created called Wendy's. She moved into virtual worlds like Roblox and Minecraft, and she's actually challenging avid gamers like us. And it's AI playing with us and beating us at it, right? So more and more, the future of advertising would be powered by creativity and AI and all possible creative tech, as we call it. And it's a forward-looking space, and we need to create more of meaningful experimentation and test and learn. And while we are looking at testing our technology, we've got to be very clear in terms of what we intend to learn from it. That's what larger brands are looking forward to, right? It's not going to be meaningful experimentations, but a pilot which can be scaled to 20 other brands, for all you know.
Great. I think more or less we covered, and what I conclude is that, it is innovative. We have some questions about it, but at the same time, those questions would be answered because, this happens with any innovation which comes in, that, we'll have some questions, apprehensions. But I think more confidence by user spending almost, 40 billion within the 4 messaging apps, right? 40 billion users coming on the messaging app. That's the right medium where, people can actually integrate brands. So we'll leave it to the brands and agencies to decide how they want to formulate this. So I think we're not left with much of time. Any questions that we have from, crowd out here for our panelists, we are happy to take that.
Our favorite part of this segment. Okay, we have our first question. It's so boring to talk alone.
What's the measurement metrics and success criteria for a brand to engage in conversation?
Sorry, can you be a bit louder?
Yeah. What's the measurement metrics and the success criteria for brands to decide whether the attempt to engage in conversation is successful or not?
So, that is what I was asking Niraj. Niraj?
Yes, you want to answer that?
What is your...
Because
I
we've done a lot of these studies as well,
Yeah.
the brand lift studies.
I think measurement metrics from the available opportunities obviously is what are the engagement rates and the brand lifts in terms of the recall, consideration, etc. that you can, in today's date, keep an eye on and be open to test and learn the platform with. I think going into the future, as all of us spoke, it will be more about attributing it to the business as well, because it's not just building top of funnel. More and more you do it and keep it always on, it will start moving to the bottom of the funnel as well. And I think one very important thing that as brands we do is, however gray the KPIs look, we try to define it in black and white as much as possible. So that even when you're testing and learning, you are very clear with the stakeholders in terms of what you're going to keep an eye on. So that's...
So brand lift is the commonly used measure, but can it be attributed to conversation? Because mostly conversation is using as a very small part right now by most brands. So how much of it can be attributed to brand lift, or the brand lift, even if my awareness and consideration move, how much I can attribute to conversation?
I'm not getting the question, so.
Not very clear.
Yeah.
So brand lift is commonly used by most brands when it comes to measuring the conversation. But brand lift is actually moved by so many factors, and mostly it is your mainline ads and your digital media. So the question is, even if we attribute the common questions that marketers face, that how much can be attributed to conversation?
So I think, like we've been discussing, there is no success metrics as such, apart from few internal benchmarking, like Yash said that, you're doing a brand lift survey.
But for that particular specific campaign and on that platform, brand lift. We are not talking about brand lift for the campaign per se across media. It'll be brand lift for that campaign on that platform. So for example, if Yash is activating a Mondelez campaign on Bobble.ai, the brand lift would be run on their platform. It can be control expose and then
Control expose, so it can be, your own internal BLS measuring by asking certain question, whether you are exposed to the brand or not, what is your viewpoint, or, getting external BLS like Nielsen or anybody, measuring the success of the campaign.
I think she was more meaning to say that if it was for the entire thematic, then how do you attribute it back to conversational media?
There are ways in which, like Niraj said, 100% attribution can be to the activity you are doing outside of the overall campaign. But I think there is a larger canvas to cover beyond that as well.
Yeah. So I think the red.
One question.
Can we take one more question? Yeah.
One more, yes. We got an approval.
Because we have a red line showing over there.
Yeah, very quickly. Thank you so much for your time. You mentioned about brands directly conversing with the users, but a lot of influencers also play a role in that conversation these days, and influencers are mainly on platforms, let's say a Facebook or a YouTube. Like, what is your viewpoint on how these platforms can also be used as a conversational, discussion via, let's say, an influencer. Let's say if I'm an influencer and I want to use a brand's emojis and all, but do these platforms support it today, or do you think that they will be doing that in the future? Because I know you talked about WhatsApp, but then a lot of conversation happens on those other platforms also.
Absolutely. I mean, I think anybody wants to take up this question? Yeah.
So there is, this becomes a part of the conversational commerce that happens on Facebook. So a lot of brands are now seeding questions that is related to their product or brand. So for example, skincare. A lot of influencers now put up a seeding question saying that I have so and so problems. How do I use some product to get rid of it? And then a series of conversations start on these platforms, and influencers put their how-to videos and their experiences. So it's not just related to stickers or GIFs. It's now expanding. So now it's there is an involvement of influencers as well in this sort of platform and media.
But if the question is that those emojis which are being created on these platforms, can that be cascaded back to all the other messaging platforms where the reach is much higher?
Right.
I would say the answer is yes, right?
It can.
Because I actually pick up my emojis and I share it on my Teams chat as well. It can also go on your Insta chat. It can go on any chat. It will need some effort though.
So it needs
WhatsApp.
Like any meme or anything, it needs an initiation platform, a launch platform, and then after that, like we said, it's an UGC. So the distribution which is something which cannot be counted. So when you talk about influencer, it is one way of communicating about brand or influencing about a brand, but then it's not a two-way, right? Now people reacting to it within the conversation, like emotions and everything, giving a thumbs up, right? It's a measurement for that influence as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Niraj, Yash, Mamta, and Hoshedar for this wonderful session. Thank you so much, guys.